Much for joining us today on this webinar. As we are aware, Professor Hany Babu has completed 4 years in prison as of July 28th of this year. And today he's spending another birthday in prison with no prospect of receiving a trial. And here we are, his friends, family, colleagues, students, getting together once again to discuss his life and his work in his absence. We decided the title for this webinar to be 4 years, No Trial, Professor Hany Babu and the Question of Dissent and Academic Freedom in India, because Professor Babu and the numerous political prisoners, who are wrongfully incarcerated for speaking up against the state are prime examples of the suppression of dissent and academic freedom in India today. And by talking about Professor Babu, we are continuing the work that he was doing. At the same time, I understand it as my responsibility to talk about him, as do many of the organizers of this event. Most of my friends and Professor Babu's students from DU, not only because he was a very supportive teacher, but also because he was one of the major reasons why many of us got the opportunity to attend the University of Delhi in the first place. The legal battles that he led, to ensure the implementation of OBC reservation made it possible for students from marginalized class backgrounds, including me, to attend the University of Delhi. And as Professor Uday Kumar, who will speak here today, has mentioned in one of his earlier talks, that there is a systemic backlash against the kind of diversity that we see in the university spaces today. Like there is a new kind of intelligentsia emerging, and the regime is not happy with it. And being one of the reasons for making the university an inclusive space made Professor Babu a threat in the eyes of the state. And another reason why I find it necessary to speak up in this context is that one of the most important lessons I learned while doing PhD under his supervision, though for a really, really brief period, which was disrupted by his arrest, was that if you do not have the spine, or if you do not have the courage or willingness to speak up against injustice, there's no point in being an academic. I heard him saying the same thing in an interview given to the Caravan, and I saw him doing it in his life. My PhD program started around the time when when his house was raided. But even after the raid, Professor Babu was carrying on, with his life as usual. Like he would come to the university as usual. He would give lectures, meet with students, and he was also attending all the protests that was happening in front of the arts faculty. And when the police violence at Jamia Millia happened, I remember Professor Babu and his wife, Professor Jenny Rowena, standing with us students throughout the night as we spent a cold winter night in Delhi, in front of the Delhi police headquarters, singing and chanting slogans. And around the same time, Professor Babu delivered a lecture at Jawaharlal Nehru University around, on the linguistic imperialism in India. So, so much. And that also reminds me, I recently got to know that he's teaching, the fellow prisoners in Taloja jail how to read and write. So there is so much, I can keep talking about this. But the point I was trying to make here is that we are doing what Professor Babu would do in our position and nothing more. And each speaker at this gathering knows that very well. And they also know the necessity of these speeches, these conversations, and they understand that silence is neither an option nor a solution. So therefore, I want to thank first and foremost the guest speakers here who came, in such a short notice. It's not like a grand stage or anything, and they and we didn't give them a lot of time, but they all came. They are here. I'm really grateful for your presence, and I welcome them to the event. Professor Uday Kumar, Dr. Rais Mohammed, Ms. Ikra Reza, Advocate Nihal Singh Rathod, and Professor G.N. Sai Baba. And I welcome each and every one of you for joining us today. And without further ado, I want to invite the first speaker at this webinar. It's my pleasure to welcome Professor Uday Kumar, professor at the Center for English Studies at Jawaharlal Nehru University. Professor Kumar was Professor Babu's colleague at DU for 5 years and has been a first-hand witness of his activism inside and outside of the department ever since. Over to you, Professor.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wish to thank Ikra and Badsha and other organizers of this event for inviting me to join this gathering of family and friends to express solidarity, respect, and deep affection for Hany Babu on his birthday. As Badsha just now said, this is the 5th birthday that Hany is spending in prison. Separated unjustly from his family, his students, his friends, and from the world and the rhythms of his everyday life as a free man. This has the special poignancy as Hany's birthday falls the day after the country's Independence Day, prompting us to reflect on the meanings of freedom as we come together to stand with him, who is a friend, a colleague, and a teacher who has been denied freedom without even a trial for more than 4 years. Such reflection on freedom today, I feel, would be a meaningful way of celebrating Hany's life and of sending him our loving birthday wishes and sense of solidarity. The word freedom has a special resonance in Hany's context, in the context of his life, which comes from the word's full potential, which permeates all levels of life. As we know, Hany's work as a researcher and scholar was committed and is committed to free intellectual inquiry, which involves both questioning and curiosity. This is the nature of productive intellectual inquiry, a mixture of questioning and curiosity, what you may call defiance and love, a refusal of the authority of established knowledge, and a commitment to discover and disseminate truths and new knowledge. Hany's work in linguistics, ranging from research in syntax to interventions in public discussions of language policy, show us the shape of his pathways. The study of language as an object of knowledge, revealing its structures and regularities, was for Hany inseparable from cherishing language and valuing its full and just inhabitation as an essential condition of meaningful human life. His interventions on what Badsha mentioned just a moment ago about power relationships in language policy is a clear example of this concern. The intimate connection between specialist academic inquiry and interventions in collective public thinking has been a hallmark of Hany's academic life right through. This linkage, this sense of inseparability between one's academic professional work and one's vocation as a public intellectual is the very ground of the freedom that Hany practiced. In this sense, it's appropriate that the organizers of this gathering chose to call this a meeting on Professor Hany Babu and the question of dissent and academic freedom in India. Hany's life as an academic scholar and teacher allows us to think more deeply about academic freedom and its vital connection with the practice of public reasoning and with dissent, and the relations between the space of the university and the larger public sphere in our democracy. Hany's incarceration without trial for 4 years highlights how urgent and important these connections are for present-day India. The concept of academic freedom, which we frequently invoke, seen often as a mark of modern liberal societies, has some peculiarities. Some important early articulations of this idea we know came from late 18th century Europe, a time associated with the emergence of the concept of the modern university. Many thinkers of the 18th century and since then have argued that the university, in its scholarly inquiries, ought to have special protection from any interference from the state and from non-state actors. There should be no restriction within the academy on holding and debating views that are at variance, even contrary to those held by those in power and authority. However, this idea of academic freedom, in its dominant established versions, often comes with two caveats. The first is that academic freedom should work within academic institutional structures and the power relations that sustain them. Second, academic freedom within the university is predicated on the university's insulation from non-specialist debates in the public sphere. Both these conditions have been questioned in our times, especially so in societies like ours, where the university has remained a space of inherited privilege and an institution whose relationships of power require critical scrutiny. In fact, if academic freedom is to nurture critical thought, it needs to be directed at the very conditions of the academy, the relationship between the university and society. Hany's exercise of academic freedom comprised not only the practice of his discipline, but also active efforts to make the space of higher education inclusive and just. All of us know of his outstanding and at times single-handed struggle to ensure the implementation of reservation policy in admissions and recruitment in Delhi University. This was accompanied by a struggle to alter long-standing practices of caste discrimination, which have become part of the inherited habits of the university and the academic community. When I was Hany's colleague in Delhi University, I observed him patiently and rigorously work out ways in which such habits may be changed and more just procedures and attitudes be put in their place. Hany's public interventions directed both at changing the character of the university and also changing our society's character by creating egalitarian and inclusive access to education was based in the line of Ambedkarite thought in ensuring constitutionally guaranteed rights and creating legal structures that would protect equality and freedom. This led Hany to take, in addition to his qualifications in linguistics, a formal degree in law. It's a height of irony that Hany, with his passionate investment in structural and legal solutions, was arrested on unproven allegations of working to thwart legal structures. The irony becomes even more sinister when we observe the fact that even after 4 years, trial has not begun in Hany's case, resulting in a total denial of his right as a citizen to defend himself against false charges. The Supreme Court, as we all read a few days ago in the newspapers, observed that bail and not jail ought to be the norm, even in cases registered under the onerous provisions of UAPA. This principle, which is a minimum condition for any possibility of justice, should be observed fully, and Hany granted bail immediately. It's also important that the trial in Hany's case should begin without any further delay so that he can defend and free himself from false charges and return to his full life in all its dimensions. I feel that the 4 years of Hany's imprisonment without trial demonstrates two things with striking clarity. The first is the danger that attempts to create an inclusive, egalitarian space of education with its promise of an educated society that affirms its rights face in contemporary India and the ominous threat this poses for our democracy and freedom. The second, equally important lesson is from Hany's own practice of freedom, of upholding the affirmative values of courage, truth, justice, and friendship for Maitri, even when in jail. In his reading and research behind bars, his teaching languages and providing legal advice to fellow prisoners, his learning new languages in jail, and his steadfast refusal to compromise his integrity, we see the true practice of freedom in its utmost possibilities. For more than 4 years, it's not only Hany who has been denied liberty. It is also we, our universities, and the public sphere that have been denied Hany's precious presence and participation. This dark period of injustice has to end now. I join you in demanding Hany's immediate release and stand with all of you in wishing Hany freedom on his birth.
Thank you, Professor Kumar, for this speech. Now, let me welcome Dr. Rais Mohammed, founder of Dalit Camera, a media platform that actively addresses issues related to caste system in India and provides a platform for voices from Dalit, Bahujan, Adivasi, and other minority communities. Dr. Mohammed and Dalit Camera has consistently engaged with the Bhima Koregaon case, and particularly Professor Hany Babu's incarceration. I cannot see Dr. Rais Mohammed among the audience, so I'm gonna move to the next speaker, who is my friend and colleague at the University of Houston, Miss Ikra Raza. Ikra was one of Professor Babu's students in the department and was an active member of the collective that we formed following his the raid at his residence, titled Students in Solidarity with Professor Hany Babu. Over to you, Ikra.
Thank you, Ibrahim, for the generous introduction, for calling me a professor, which I'm not yet, but thank you. Thank you to everyone for coming together today to celebrate Professor Babu's birthday, which he's spending in jail again, and this is the 4th year in a row. Thank you, Professor Kumar, for agreeing to speak, and thank you for your very valuable insights. So I assume a lot of people are going to talk about Professor Babu as an academic, Professor Babu's rights movements, etc. What I'm going to focus on is Professor Babu's relationship with his students and what it meant for us to have him as a professor. So, the master's classroom at Delhi University is a very weird space, teeming with anonymity. And it is almost impossible to be heard, to be seen in a crowd of 100, 120 students in the classroom. In my 3rd semester at DU, after having heard a lot about this incredible professor, I witnessed him walk in and start with our names. At the end of the class, Professor Babu had us all write our names down on a sheet he circulated, and subsequently in every class he would do that, but also ask names each time someone raised a hand. He said it was his way of remembering the names of faces he was supposed to see every week. He did not like forgetting, and today that is one of our aims with this event as well. Let's not forget. Let's never forget. So Professor Babu was not just one of the favorites of the class because of his teaching. His 9 a.m. classes were always full. which is quite a feat for a professor at DU, as some of you would know and remember, but also because he lent his unconditional support to all of our very just demands from the administration at Delhi University, which is really hard to deal with. And that is how we slowly stirred ourselves into forming a political conscience as well. I remember the very first protest we were a part of was in solidarity with the Department of Mathematics. And we turned to Professor Babu for counsel and eventually ended up releasing a statement in solidarity with them. Professor Babu became our mentor in all senses of the word. Some 4 years back, when we were protesting the very major Citizenship Amendment Act, Professor Babu lent his support yet again, even though his house had been raided and he was under watch by the NIA. Soon after, Delhi was reeling under violent communal riots, and some of us women from my college, we formed a committee to provide aid to the victims. It was a strange scenario. While Muslims were being killed about 6 kilometers away from the university, Delhi University was celebrating its annual festivals. In face of such horrific violence, we at the English department decided to boycott classes. And the one professor who lent his unconditional support to that was Professor Hany Babu. Professor Babu, he was always with us and encouraged us. And so eventually we boycotted classes and he called off his class as well. A while after, one of my friends from Kashmir and I found ourselves under the radar of the very notorious right-wing mouthpiece, Op India. And the first person I called in my anxiety was Professor Babu, not just because I trusted him, but also because of his legal knowledge. And had it not been for his counseling and guidance at the moment, I really doubt I would have made it to the place I am today. Professor Babu not just guided our lives into a conscious, responsible, ethical, egalitarian living, but he also ensured that we did that with safety while he risked his own. And that is how I and others in my class remember him. And I have some of my classmates in the audience today who would attest to that. Also, back in 2020, after his home had been raided by the NIA, I met Professor Babu on the metro, ran into him. For those of you who know Delhi Metro would know that it is a space where you run into people all the time. So I went up to him, we chatted for a bit about what happens next in his case. And I remember he said he was very worried. But he was not worried about himself. He was not worried for himself at all. What he was worried about was the fate of the country. That this was a very dangerous trend. And as we're also acknowledging here today, it indeed has been a very dangerous trend. Dissent in India is a word that exists only in closed spaces. In classrooms where government agencies do not knock doors, or at least did not. Dissent is private now. It is hushed. We do not talk politics with acquaintances in India. We check that our phones are off before expressing anti-regime opinions. We do not trust WhatsApp. Life in India changed so drastically for us after 2014. Recently, I read the news that even doctoral research topics are supposed to be of national importance. But there are people like Professor Hany Babu, who we are celebrating today, who fought and who continue to fight. I realized a few days back that even Umar Khalid's birthday was 5 days ago. And Umar Khalid is one of the student leaders who continues to rally in jail for also 3-4 years. So there are these people still who are speaking, who can dare to speak, who are fighting at their own peril. There are these people who are trying to make dissent public once again, people who are fighting for the rights of the minority, who are making people feel seen, who are visibilizing the ghosts, the specters of the society. And it is to these people, to these figures, people like Professor Babu, that I dedicate my research to as well, which is on specters and visibilizing the specters. So, as we wish Professor Babu a happy birthday, we also demand his release from prison, we provide him our unconditional support, and we demand a trial for him as well, so that, as Professor Kumar was saying, he can defend himself into a release. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ikra, for such a wonderful speech. And yeah, I think all his students share the same sentiment when it comes to any sort of social justice issues, like how he was always like putting the issue, making the issue the priority, and that's like sharing it with students and expressing that openly and being with the students. So now let me welcome Dr. Rais Mohammed, the founder of Dalit Camera. Please welcome Dr. Rais Mohammed.
So should I go ahead?
Yes.
And I'm very sorry that it was delayed. Actually, I was not founder of Dalit Camera because per se, that word Dalit Camera was given by Hany Babu. There was already videos there. So Hany was the person who called me and said that you have been uploading videos, but where will I search? There has to be something that I have to search. So then I was giving different names, untouchable eyes, various things. And Hany said that, oh, Dalit Camera. Yeah, that is great. But when I went to Gaddar and asked him to give an interview, that Dalit Camera, he said that, what Dalit Camera? What Canon cameras I heard, but what is this new Dalit Camera? I'm not going to give you interview for you. I don't know, you must have jovially said that. I don't take that as serious. No. So anyway, Hany Babu is Hany and Jenny, both of them, were very personally attached actually. And because you must have seen the recent Supreme Court judgment on sub-classification of the scheduled caste population. And in that Supreme Court judgment, there is a part which talks about homogeneous and heterogeneous. Earlier Supreme Court judgment said that it does not stay on code because it affects the homogeneity of a caste, which the court doesn't have the power to interfere with. That is 341 clause, Article 341. So the present judgment argues this is a heterogeneity community. So, and they bring different data and argue that this is the reason that they're heterogeneity. And one of the major articles they refer was my article. The article which I wrote for EPW, 2016. And then in that article, they refer Dalit Camera, and my footnote, there'll be Dalit Camera. So there was a time when I was in Indian Institute of Advanced Study, a sociologist said, I went with a research proposal. Research, not only research proposal, a paper. Maybe this paper alone, this is the paper, I think. No, I have to check actually. Yeah, I have to check. So I said, there is an idea because sociologist, I am trained in social linguistics with Hany Babu, who critically makes me to work. And I asked her that I don't want to take her name, but she humiliated me like anything. I can't say how much I was on tears. I just asked her that, see, I have an idea of this. How do you see this? I said. She said, do you know what is sociology is? And I said, yes, I know. And then she didn't ask me to tell. She just kept on doing this actually. So maybe 20 minutes she gave me a lecture of uh, how worse I am in academics. And I just laughed, and I think I called Hany at that time, and I really, before that I cried actually. It was very humiliating. And then there was another incident also. I went to Madras, IIT Madras, and I went with the proposal. See, the proposal for me, it is a very strong proposal. The idea which I have is very strong. Maybe the readers may not understand what I'm saying, and I agree to that because I want to do a research work. So I went there. Again, there I felt I got humiliated. So I came back. It is after that only I went to septic tank cleaning. By the time I was started my business septic tank, I don't think Hany was out. But actually, if today, Supreme Court has recognized, and you know what is happening in India right now, it is the paper which I wrote, which three references, one more references was taken from my paper. And Supreme Court judgment, and you read the paper of mine, you would see that even the creamy layer argument would be from that paper. So, I was not given admission. I did not know English. And I used to write even with a broken grammar. Even now I speak in a broken grammar. And then even when I write also, even now there'll be a lot of grammatical mistakes. But Jenny was one person who used to encourage me because I was a secretary of students and Hany was also a secretary of Teachers Association. And, when you go to a central university, as a person who studied from Government Arts College, who doesn't even know any other culture, when I go to Central University, to that space, it is Hany and Jenny who fought for me like anything actually. If anything in my life has happened, there are 2, 3 people, very important people in my life. The person who said that go to Coimbatore is one teacher, and the other teacher from Coimbatore to go to Hyderabad. But in Hyderabad, I was returning by train that I didn't get admission in my MPhil. And it is Hany and Jenny said that, no, how is it possible? You will get admission. And they fought for my case because I was very active and my departments didn't want me to take. Very surprisingly, when Dalits were, I won't say Dalits because I don't want to classify, it's actually a Dalits problem. Even the lower class also from a caste Hindu background, person who does not have background also, they face the same issues with different professors in the university. So in that space, when I went there, they were giving me a space to feel that I'm very comfortable. Because for me, lift was also very, when I saw Seafill was very posh building. Classrooms were very posh and teachers used to smoke in the class. And then they used to watch movies, which was all for me surprising. And all those time, I'll just take 2 minutes, right? 10 minutes, 2 minutes, right? So all those times it was Hany and Jenny who stood by me, and Hany used to tell me, "You have something that you are not doing it." He used to always say that there is something that you have to do. There is something. When I put an argument about reservation, also he would give me some idea about that, and we used to discuss. And in my university, there was no professor to take me as a student, and they said that. We don't guide you. You take anybody across India. They gave a special class exclusively for me. You take anybody across India, we will sign the paper, but they have to agree, which is in a case to say that we don't want you. It was Hany who took me as a guide, and he guided me through my life, my MPhil and PhD. So it was very emotional, Hany and Jenny. And they were very closely associated. If there is any issues, whichever I face or whatsoever, even he was one person whom I could call back. And the research also, which since it's a live stream, people will watch also. They may say what kind of nonsense research you have done. Professor Dalit, we disagreed. See, Hany and me were trying to develop an argument, which I told him that, sir, Because when I studied anti-caste and sanitation, I found there was a dead block that it is not going forward. It is repetition of all the studies which is there. And atrocity is continuing, manual scavenging is continuing, and there is every time there is a problem. So the academical methodology which they followed to understand caste, I found there's a problem because I was reading Zizek, I was following Zizek in YouTube, and YouTube Zizek was very helpful on toilet. That enlightened me, and I looked caste into a different angle. That is a different angle. But what me and Hany was discussing is, and that Hany also had a great part in discussing because he was the only person who could discuss. And Hany is that we discussed that caste is not a problem of SC versus the BC or the non-SCs. Caste is a problem of every individual, including SCs. That is what Supreme Court says now. It is and now the data also shows. Today, just before this, I took an interview, and that interview person also tells every data of SC says that there is a lot of disparity among different castes, and they're living in separate blocks. So that is there. So I was saying caste is not a problem of caste versus caste. It is about individuals. Every individual has it. So how does an individual carry caste? This was my question. So I said it is through body language and then voice. I focus on this voice. See, Dalits particularly have a lower tone. In this linguistics, there is a study on sound of a human, male and a female. So according to their rating, male should have particular rate. Female should have particular rate. I left studies for last 4 years, okay? So I forgot all the vocabularies. So they have different scales. And that scale, Dalit's voice is not even meeting the normal scale. But higher caste is meeting that. So when does a Dalit's tone meets that scale, normal voice scale for a man or a female, it meets when he gets angry or when he shouts. That's where people say that, why are you shouting? But that is the time when a Dalit would argue normally. That is why he leaves his caste identity and comes out with a blowing mind. But for everyone, it will be looking like he's shouting. If you know that many discussions among Dalits, they will say, you are shouting, you are shouting. That is the case because that is the time he's leaving his anti-caste body and is bringing his self into it. So this was my study. This was my finding. Finding means this was my question. And I want to research this and I want to go. So Hany said that, why don't you go and, because I'm not trained in that genre. So Hany said, why don't you go and take all the videos of political parties and movies, random movies, and just check their all tone. So then by the time I finished all my education, by the time I got some ideas, I already finished my academics. No more finance support. Therefore, I went for research. And Hany did say that you go for research. Because Hany is one person who stands very strong. He does not compromise at any cost. He will never compromise a dime in his life. Anything happens, he will never ever compromise. He will never ever lie. He will never. Whatsoever you do, he will never ever compromise. That is his politics. So therefore, he told me one thing. In academics, I have a bad name. I don't have name, first of all. So my reference won't work. But I can give you a strong reference. But that doesn't work because, academicians all here are monopolized. It is the few, there may be hundreds of universities, IITs. And if you take one department of science, or let me speak my department, humanities. Humanities, there'll be one godfather among SCs, one godfather in the Brahmins. They both will decide who should read, who should not read. That kind of a monopoly is there. And that kind of a monopoly, I was not able to go. And that sociologist, and Hany, if he was there, he would have celebrated the way I also felt when I started the septic tank, I felt that Hany is not there. I finished my writing. Nobody is changing. I went to movement, and the movement is also not even taking it seriously. They said that sanitation workers, there is no self-respect for them. Yeah, they should leave the job. I said, everybody's shitting. You are also shitting. You wipe yours, then they won't come. They said, no, they shouldn't do. I said, nobody should do this work. That should be your ideology. Nobody agreed. So therefore, I said that I myself will do it. Because I said academicians did not read my paper. It did not impact. They did not leave me, get me into academics. And then there is this political movement, Dalit movement did not entertain. So therefore, when I start working as septic tank cleaner 4 years later, I receive a message that your paper has been published in the judgment. So all these credits goes to people like Hany and Jenny. I think they have impacted people like me. They have impacted so much, and I would say that I'll be in their footnote that what impact they did is I think whatever I've achieved in my life that should go to Hany and Jenny, and because I was MPhil, I was struggling all through my academics till I completed my PhD. And he was like my, I can't say what relation we had, but yeah, but sadly, I couldn't even raise a dime on this issue. Thank you. And it's a really an honor to be one among the 4 members to speak about Hani. There'll be thousands of people, but really, I must have taken many of the people who would have wanted to speak, and I hope I conveyed your message also in this. If I have not, please apologize for that. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam, Rais. Thank you so much for this moving talk. And, as you're talking, as you were speaking, I was like really relating every single thing you said in my situation, like the 1 year I was able to work as his PhD advisee, I was like put in a similar situation, and I mentioned that some of it in my opening remarks, but like during the pandemic, when he was facing this investigation, going through all of this, we were still like doing video call, like Zoom meetings and figuring out research and like a reading list. So anyway, now let's move on to our next speaker. Let me welcome Advocate Nihal Singh Rathod, an acclaimed human rights lawyer who has been closely working with the Elgar Parshad Bhima Koregaon case, and being Surendra Gadling's colleague, Sri Rathod was also part of the legal team that fought for Professor Jean Sai Babu, who will speak here later. And please join me in welcoming Advocate Nihal Singh Rathod.
Thank you so much, Ibrahim ji, and very revolutionary Jai Bhim to all of you. I must begin with an apology that I had to connect through my mobile and from car. So if any disruption happens during this conversation, please forgive me. I must also say that I am not as fortunate as many of you are, for I never got an opportunity to know Professor Hany Babu from so close quarters prior to his arrest. I had heard of him, I have known of him, I've read some of his material, but it was not until really this case, this Bhima Koregaon case began that I got to know him much. As a lawyer, I'm sure you all must be expecting many more things from me, but given the time constraint, I'll try to speak as little as is necessary. And that's a very difficult task because if I am to speak about Bhima Koregaon case and all these people, 24 hours continuous time will also fall short. But let me say, or let me put it in this context. The attack on Hany Babu really was pinned at one name, that was Professor G.N. Sai Baba Defense Committee. And that's where they started nudging him from, that you were part of this person's defense committee and this person is a convicted Maoist, and you were active part of it, you have connections with them, etc., etc. That was said, and that's also part of some of the allegations are also part of the charge sheet. Now, interestingly, Professor G.N. Sai Baba, who's also on the panel today and will be speaking, he's been honorably acquitted by the Bombay High Court, holding him not guilty under any of the charges of UAPA, finding no stretch of evidence against him. And imagine the situation now that the person who was defending an innocent, who was trying to build legal defense for an innocent person, for an academic, for a human rights activist, has been jailed for the allegations of supporting him. But that's not the only thing that has happened, and many of you have put it in context as to why Professor has really been targeted. But I must reveal this, and I don't know if this has been revealed prior or not. When after this raid happened and many things happened, and there was intervention of Corona period in between, and then Professor was called upon to Bombay by NI. And to my information, and to which I know it for a reason, there was an offer given to Professor that either he should stand as a witness and give a false statement that all these people who are arrested so far, there were 12 people by then who were in jail. He must make a statement that all these people are Maoist, they are party members, they are highly placed office bearers of CPI Maoist. And if he makes that statement, he'll be let off. And he was to take that decision, and we know what decision he has taken, for he's in jail since past 4 years. So that's really, we know the man with principles stood by the principles and refused to make any false statement, and he's suffering for that. Third thing I would like to say about this trial, this Bhima Koregaon trial, and when we are speaking about no trial as such, with whatever little experience that I have, I must say that I don't see this trial ending in next 20 years also. It's not going to end in 20 years also, for variety of reasons. One of the reason is prosecution does not want trial in this matter. They only want to keep these people in jail for longest possible period. And that is what they wanted to do in Professor Sai Baba's case, when they wanted to have him in jail for longest possible period, but they could not. And then we know how the judgment came, how the judge was biased. And for that period, as in for at least 10 years, Professor G.N. Sai Baba has suffered the ordeal of life. And of course, again, for the reasons of being a principled person, standing by the ethics and speaking out the truth to power. Another aspect that we must also understand of this case is they're talking and basing their entire case on electronic evidence, which runs in volumes, which runs in number of pages. And to my count, so far, the charge sheet has gone into about 50,000 pages. And I'm sure that even the prosecutors have not read that many papers, but we must, because we are to get these people out of bail and prove that they are not prima facie guilty at this stage. But with the judgment, sorry, am I there? Yeah. So yeah, I was saying there's so much of material that has been dumped by the prosecution that it makes it very difficult for an accused to take that 50,000 pages from trial court and place it before the High Court and say that, look, there is no evidence against me, and from there to the Supreme Court and say that again there is no evidence against me. And the art that this prosecution has learned is to, just bombard the charge sheet with as many pages as many possible, because then it scares not just the counsels, the lawyers, the judges also, because they are not, they will not want to look into a case which has got 50,000 pages to be gone through. And that's how this case is prolonging, going on and on. And as we see already, there's been one round to the Supreme Court in case of Professor Hany Babu. Now again, it has come back to Bombay High Court. And things have changed. Supreme Court, after long, again has said that bail is the rule and jail is an exception. So let's hope that something comes out favorably in days to come, and we see Professor Hany Babu in person on his next birthday. Similar, or rather, I would say, a longer period of time has been spent by Surendra Gadling. Surendra Gadling was defending Professor G.N. Sai Baba in his case. Sudhir Dhawle, Rona Wilson, we know again was part of G.N. Sai Baba Defense Committee, and he still continues to be in the jail. Sagar Gorkhe and Ramesh Gaichor, both were again given the same offer that he should stand as a witness, and he refused. Both of them refused, and they are in jail. Jyoti is there. We have sadly lost Father Stan Swami, a case of institutional murder for a person who fought throughout his life to have tribals released from the jail, and that person himself died in jail. So, and a few of them have come out, and there is a hope that in days to come we will have some positive impact. But we never know how this government and state is going to react and how they are going to build more cases. So I will rest with that. If there's any question, I would be happy to answer that.
Thank you so much. I keep remembering this thing that Professor Hany Babu mentions in one of his interviews, where this process itself becomes the punishment. Also, thank you for mentioning Father Stan Swami. May his soul rest in peace. We lost him in police custody, and that is a dread that we have to make peace with. Anyway, the final speaker of today's event is our dearest Professor Jian Sai Baba, a brave intellectual, poet, a great human rights activist. He was a professor at DU before he was arrested and spent 10 years in prison. He was acquitted of all charges against him in March 2024. Professor Babu was in the leading role of Professor Sai Baba's Defense Committee. And we are so lucky to have him here today to speak with us. Please join me in welcoming Professor Jian Sai Baba.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. It's very, very difficult for me to speak today because, to talk about Professor Hany Babu, who's a distinguished colleague and a close friend of mine, both in academic life and also in social life, who is still languishing behind bars. And, I was shocked when I read news in my prison cell, and one morning, 4 years ago, that his house was raided, and later he was arrested. It was shocking. And I knew all those years, since 2014, he was at the center of the campaign for my release. And he was not just a campaigner, as all of you know, because all of us knew Professor Hany Babu, whatever he takes up, he will not do something just as kind of a thing that can be done and left out. He would study it. He would, go deep into it and then strategize it, plan it with everyone together and do the things. We worked together on the campus and outside the campus for years, more than a decade or 15 years. Primarily, we worked when we started working together on Delhi University campus. It was the individual cases of denial of admission for SCs, STs, and OBCs. When the students came to us and showed us that, they were eligible in every aspect and they were in the list, but still they were denied. Then, after studying a number of cases, we started an organization called Reservation Executive Committee. Very soon, many teachers and students joined that. And so Professor Hany Babu's proposal that, it's just not enough to take up individual issues and go to each department and place things before them. Because it was, the individual cases were so many and you get tired of solving the problems after 10, 15. And he collected the entire material to, understand in what ways the administration denies admission, or, throughout the teachers who are the potential teachers, even at the level of, initial applications for the teaching posts. So it was like Professor Hany Babu who used to do for the entire team of people. And also made us read every aspect, not only just this, but we had, Professor Hany Babu insisted that every one of us should read all the judgments related to the reservations by Supreme Court, High Courts. It was kind of a rigorous, he was always a person who would go rigorously into the topic, whether it's academic or social movement or anything. And I benefited personally. And, it's not just that, when the question came of political prisoners, when the committee committee for the release of political prisoners was formed long ago, along with Professor Gilani, Rona Wilson, and others, he did the same thing, systematic study of things before start doing anything. Many of you may not know now, and I should tell you the successes that we got in the struggle, long protracted struggle for implementation of reservations in Delhi University. And this is today is Hany Babu's birthday, and 4 years into the prison life, still behind the bars. Yes, we have to celebrate in one way that the ways in which we got success, and at the center of the success was Professor Hany Babu at each time. When when the admissions in Delhi University each year would start and denials of reservations for the students of all the marginalized communities come, we never, stopped at the level of talking to the departments, talking to the administration, taking it up with the Vice Chancellor. Then we went to the HRD ministry. We had several meetings with the minister, secretary of the HRD department, and a number of secretaries, joint secretaries. And several years, that the phases of admissions were increased and prolonged because of the adamant nature of the administration of different colleges and university to deny admissions for the most marginalized sections. And when we worked together and a number of teachers were there, students were there, it is not for the reservation of any one category. It was a reservation for all categories of the people until we reached a level of, 50% of the students come from the reserved sections as mandated. We never used to stop. And, at the center of this hard work, writing RTI letters, hundreds of RTI letters, and posting them is a very tedious work. But one who would never get tired of doing this is Professor Hany Babu. All of us at some point will also get involved into other issues, even when some certain things will be pending in the taken up work collectively. But Professor Hany Babu would never do that. He will do the all other things, but also will finish this. I mean, that is the kind of rigor in his work, social work, or in academic work. He is a distinguished scholar of linguistics. He has substantially contributed to the field of linguistics. It's not like just a professor and it goes on. Your academic career goes on. No. And when he was not satisfied with his own work in the linguistics, the field of linguistics, he moved on to the politics of language, politics of culture. He wrote substantial papers on all this. I mean, you see whatever paper he has written on the issues of the language question, whether it is the three language formula, or whether it is the language question of different castes, or many things, that whichever he has written. And in the course of this social activity, where we have also knocked the door of every institution, every office, and on the streets. And, we went everywhere with concrete work, concrete papers, concrete, proposals, and placed the papers with concrete, evidence, facts. Behind all this hard work, Professor Hany Babu was at always the center. And apart from that, there are people who get admission, but they will not be able to continue because of financial problems due to the background from where they come. And you have to help them. How do you help them? Even for that, Professor Hany Babu used to be at the forefront for all this. And, when we had debates, hours-long debates with secretaries of, whether it was HRD ministry or social welfare ministry or other ministries where the government, was involved in either atrocities or denying the opportunities, we worked systematically and went there. And it is the same, attitude with which Professor Hany Babu did the campaign for my release. He was not the one who would just do the campaign for the sake of campaign or issue with the kind of empty slogans. He studied, first of all, immediately the charge sheet against me. And in this context, we should also say, know one thing. During the course of our activities on the campus and outside the campus, in the larger arenas also, we got tired of several times talking to the lawyers who would take up a case in a court of law and who would say certain things, like this cannot be done. Decided to study. But how do you counsel the people who are suffering? And law is a very, very complex subject where you don't understand always. So, I mean, that is the only reason why Professor Hany Babu studied law and completed his degree. Of course, we know that he learned law not in the classroom, but in the arena of these struggles. But at the same time, he wanted a systematic knowledge of law also. That is the kind of thinking that he always have. Systematic thinking of law would help and equip our hands to seek justice for the marginalized people. In the same way, he studied my case. He studied the judgment of the session court and things like that. And, all of you, I would share with all of you, I would share. It was not just all these things that I have been narrating to you. In terms of academic work, any student, any teacher would approach him to discuss, he would never deny. And he would himself go and study that, that issue. He's not the one who will just give you advice by just looking at the paper with a glance. He would read it and he will go and study and he will call you back. That is the kind of essay. And it's very important to understand after why Professor Hany Babu has been behind the bars all these years. I mean, don't they know the perpetrators of this crime of arresting and incarcerating a professor who has worked for the society, worked for the university, for the marginalized people of the thing selflessly. We all know that this has become a crime. I mean, if you work for the marginalized and the governments which always take the name of Dalits, Adivasis, OBCs, and marginalized people, they punish and they silence the voices of those people who work for them in real sense. That is one reason I think, apart from this campaign for my release. And I also got shocked to see when the bail arguments or the cases were placed in the court, repeatedly my name came in the newspapers that Professor Hany Babu collected funds for the campaign of release of Sai Baba. He wrote the press releases. He organized meetings for my release. How can these be accusations against any professor or any human being, as being a kind of a serious crime being committed? What is the law in the country even say at that time when I was facing life sentence imposed by the Dr. Sessions Court? Why won't the people have the right to challenge that judgment? The people who know that no such crime was not done and know the entire thing, that this is a kind of a false and fabricated case, politically motivated. I mean, according to what law, according to what section of the Constitution, people can be silenced for not speaking against injustice? How could the agencies who implicated Professor Babu and others could make such a claim, and the courts could be carried away by those claims of accusations? I mean, this is a very strange period that we are living through. It's dark times really that we are going through. I mean, it's not the question of today simply, you know, the, the social movements and all that. I mean, many of these cases, and also individuals who are implicated in this, including me and Prof Hany Babu, there is somewhere at the heart of it is the aim is to suppress academic freedom. See, all of us, whether Professor Hany Babu or me or Professor Shoma Sen, and particularly Anant Teltumde, we are, approaching every subject from academic angle also. Apart from doing, we have done substantial research in our own way and in our own fields, and have written certain things which were never allowed to be written earlier within the academic arena. And we have tried to erase the boundaries between the academic work and social work. That's one of the reasons why many of us were targets. If you take the issue of Adivasis or Dalits, their lives, culture, languages, and how they were studied earlier, and how we intervene through our own academic work, and how we try to see that a bureaucratic attitude of looking at many of these issues should be, expanded to the outside of their boundaries. As early as when I was a student in CAEFL, now English and Foreign Language University, I wrote a paper when Professor Hany Babu was my senior as a PhD scholar at that time, about the boundaries of academic disciplines. Now it is well recognized and accepted to erase the boundaries within the academic disciplines, but we also try to erase the boundaries of the social discourse within the people's movements, within the lives of the people and academic arena. That is, there are certain forces, orthodox forces, who dislike these kind of attempts always. So what I would like to say is, in seminars or in our own work or the way we guide the students, it was very, very visible that we always try to erase these boundaries. And you can see that how silencing of the academic voices, how silencing of the social voices are related to this. Very interestingly, Bhima Koregaon as an incident, as a kind of a celebratory history, that the case was made. It's a very obvious case where, the entire history and the issues that are related are entangled with all of us. And it's a kind of, wonder, and also to see the irony as well, to see how Professor Hany Babu is implicated in a case where all our lives, work, and everything historically also related to the 200 years of struggles, which has a kind of a relation with Koregaon Bhima incident of that area, and how people look at that incident as a kind of struggle, not only against Brahminical forces, but also against colonial forces. I mean, you would wonder how I would say this, that when that particular war was in support of the British, but at the same time, I'm saying that it was against colonialism. It was the Dalit soldiers who took the initiative, not the British, in that particular war against the Peshwas, against the Brahminical rule. And that why British did not want that, the fear of losing at that moment, but why the Dalit soldiers wanted it, because they wanted to prove their first ever, revolt which could be successful against a Brahminical regime and lead to its collapse. So you can see that, it always depends on how you look at it, look at the things. Why today let's look at that incident 200 years ago happened as a kind of victory, the starting point of the victory for Dalit struggles. I mean, we have to see this. And then, ironically, of course, that incident was used to arrest all these 16 people in Bhima Koregaon case, but Elgar Pushit case that is called by the police. But one thing we should understand is that all the people who are involved, who were arrested and incarcerated in this case, they have a long history of struggles, long history of involving academic studies in one way or the other, cultural, legal studies. You could understand that. I would like to also say a few words before concluding from my side. Surendra Gadling, my lawyer at the trial court, he is also the one who studied every case in depth. In our case, though the judge chose to give a sentence without any basis, without following any law, without following criminal jurisprudence, but the way he presented the case, the way he, every point he studied to show how it was fabricated at each stage of the case was wonderful study. And interestingly, during the trial itself, he was threatened that whatever will happen or has happened to Sai Baba will also happen to you. It was an open threat. And they did the same thing. And he's still, after more than 5 years, he's still behind the bars. The first thing that they did was, while he was arguing and conducting the trial, they brought a kind of a false person and filed an affidavit that he would become a witness against Surendra Gadling, that he also involved in the same crime. That could not be done because it was legally unviable. So it was kept aside for the time being. And then the police, who were the agency who implicated me in the false case, threatened in the court itself before other lawyers that he will see Surendra Gadling after I being punished. And the same team of people who went and arrested Surendra Gadling. Why I'm saying this is that all three of us, at least I know, were threatened before our arrest, long before our arrest, and indicated that they are going to implicate false and fabricated cases. First, the police came, in my case, long before my arrest, and said that we are going to arrest you if you don't stop campaign for Adivasis against Operation Green Hunt. We have the green signal from the highest authorities. If you want to continue and live a very secure life, you stop it. And I told them that I am doing the legitimate work. I am doing nothing wrong. And you cannot, threaten me by, a case, by implicating me in a case. You may read, the first time I wrote this openly and publicly in Outlook, which has come out just 2 days ago in an article, how they threatened me. Later on, I came to know it was Surendra Gadling in the court, open court, he was threatened. And later I came to know that Prof Hany Babu was also threatened during his interrogation. It was a kind of a desire to silence the voices which speak for the marginalized people and for certain values and certain kind of work that the way the society needs. During this entire course of the struggles that we got involved into, most of the struggles on the campus and outside, we got very good successes. And of course, we would never say that because of those successes, we are proud of that. No, these are very small areas of successes. The larger areas of success are still there because all those people who are suffering, who could not even reach the college level or higher education from all these marginalized sections are left behind despite 75 years of so many tall promises. And I shared the same thought with Hany Babu that those of us who benefited somehow and could reach and could speak in whatever way in the limited spaces that we have, we should work for these issues of the most marginalized. And majority of the people who are left behind are the people who should be the important people for us, for our work. It's not enough for us to celebrate our own academic work or got involved and get secure lives. This is one thing which I always share with Professor Hany Babu. And, he's a great scholar and a distinguished academician, but a loving friend. It's not just that, he's a loving friend. Jenny is so emotionally related with all these topics issues, struggles. And she always became family friend along with Prof Hany Babu. Our daughters grew together from their childhood, and they suffered a lot. Either my family or Prof Hany Babu's family suffered a lot. All said and done, it's a traumatic experience for the families as well. But when I read newspapers, news in the newspapers, that when I also suffered from COVID 2 times, and Professor Hany Babu suffered serious COVID attacks, including his eyes were affected, and the skin disease, whatever that was called. I could not tolerate. Well, on one side, I was suffering from the serious attack of, and also I got this news. I could not, see, I mean, could not tolerate those times. But what to do? I mean, amidst the trauma that was all faced, there were always hope. There was always, that we will overcome these dark times. Even today, we may see that we have not overcome completely, but the hope, the rays of light, we can always see. And it is only through collective thinking and collective work that we will definitely win further successes. And 10 years of life has gone, but there is no point in regretting it. But what is the course of our work tomorrow? That is very important. And, the younger generations, now Farzana or Banjira, they have come to the universities. When I was arrested, she was in school, could not tolerate, could not, and Farzana also could not understood what is happening to his father. We know all this, It is our personal lives all got entangled into the entire this thing of a fascist attack on democracy, silencing of democratic struggles. And but at the same time, the larger academic community, the students, teachers, responded very, very well to stand with us and stand for justice and stand for, the people at large who are left behind in history, in life. And then for all of these people, we have to work together. And these dark times will not stay for very long. And I thank you, all of you, very much, and for giving this opportunity. My senior, my friend, Hany Babu is still behind the bars. And, like Rona Wilson, who is an evergreen social political activist. There was, again, for Rona Wilson, who, did not see any boundary between academic work and social work, and remained evergreen, activist with such a rigor of thinking. You can see whatever he wrote, the kind of rigorous thinking that you can see. How these people, I don't want to take each and every one of these, those who are facing the cases. The list is very long, not just the Bhima Koregaon case, Delhi cases, or the Citizens Act cases, and so many cases of how many students, thousands of students and intellectuals and middle classes and other people who have been suffered. But this is all one thing, that we have the hope. And I hope that Professor Hany Babu will be soon out, and in this process by a long friend, mentor, and advisor with whom I worked in the field of displacement. Father Stan Swami was no more. I mean, I also got into depression in jail when I heard that news, because Father Stan Swami was such a fine human being who helped us for long periods to understand the issues of Adivasis and how thousands and lakhs of Adivasis were displaced several times and suffered several times. I mean, it was a question of not displacement at one time. And I learned a lot whenever I was there in Ranchi. Was such a fine activist, Father Stan Swami. One could learn from him anything, Nobody would understand that, how Father Stan Swami was brought into the case. Father Stan Swami is another person who was consistently doing campaign for my release from Ranchi and from everywhere. So you could see the entire this thing, and it is very inspiring for me. This is also the period during these dark times that teachers and students from across the globe, hundreds of universities, came out of the classrooms into the streets and raised their voice against injustice, not just for our release. Of course, they have, and went into kind of studies to take up the issues that we were also talking about in the last few decades. And now that kind of a kind of a beginning of a kind of the vibrant campuses which were there in 1960s would also be reappearing during this period. And in the coming years, I hope that rigorous thinking will lead to the struggles for justice and also for democracy, freedom. And this is the beginning that I could see, that only after I came out of the prison, I could understand that how many campuses and how many countries the teachers and students came out to raise their voices for our release, and for particularly the issues that we raised were taken up as their issues, the fresh batches of students. And 10 years ago, I was, stopped to take to go to my classes. But all these years, the students at the campuses, they were raising their voices for my release in the same way for Professor Hany Babu as well. With these words, I will conclude. Sorry for speaking so long, because it's about Professor Hany Babu that I have to speak today. I have to say certain things. Many of you may not know. That's why I have taken such a long time. But I'm very happy to be with you this evening. And it is certainly a day to celebrate Professor Hany Babu's courage, his conviction, and his hard work for the marginalized people of this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Sai Babu, for this speech. And it's never enough, we can never talk enough about the work he did, the courage he showed, and also thank you so much for sharing all these thoughts, all your experience of going
There is power cut here.
Sorry?
There is a power cut here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I was able to. Yeah.
No, I just moved from Delhi to Hyderabad. I
Oh,
just immediately I got into this the moment I came in here.
okay.
And there's a power cut here. Okay, anyway, sorry.
Yeah, I was your daughter's classmate, and I've visited your house. That is to say, I was also aware of the situation from an angle which is not available to the public. Whenever I visited your house, I had several conversations with your wife. So, and it is so good to see you here. And it was such a pleasure listening to you. Before we end the session, I have one more speaker who is a close friend of mine, who is also part of the collective we formed at the University of Delhi following the raid at Professor Hany Babu's arrest, and who is also an organizer of this event. Let me welcome Asif Aliar, please.
Hi, am I audible? Okay. First of all, I'm a little scared to speak, not because I'm afraid of being persecuted, but because I have stage fright. And if I do not speak for like Prof Hany, who was very dear to me and like every one of us, I don't know like when we are to speak. Uh, so uh, I come from a small family in Kerala, and there were no like MA graduates or postgraduates in our family. I'm the first gen learner, and even the first gen learner word I go to know after coming to Delhi. So after college, like I kept it was only during college that I even heard about a university called Delhi University. And then I started writing different entrances, and I got into DU. And it was not a very welcoming space, as in like there were many people we know, but but when it comes to actually going to class and interacting with people, it's like people who are not used to all this stuff. It's very intimidating for like many of us. So but there are a few people, and like who makes you feel at home, and who listens to your concerns, and Professor Hany was one of those. And like my friend Ikra said earlier, we had heard a lot about Professor Hany earlier, and we used to get counsel from him, and we whenever we faced any problems from the department, or from any other side, we used to go to him, and he would patiently listen to us first, and then he would give his advice. It would not be like do that or do this, but he would suggest us to like think for ourselves, and he'll give us options and think for ourselves, and do those. And after my MA, I also happened to do an MPhil from an IIT, and from there also I go to know that academia, especially in our country, is a very elite space, and even when there are professors or higher ups from the like marginalized background, they also get into like they also get a part of the system, and they become one of them. So it's only a few people like Professor Hany, and some very few people I know that who would actually support us. Sorry. Yeah. Who would actually support us, and it's thanks to him and people like them that I could even speak here. I said, Professor Hany was very like whenever we had any protests, he used to attend there, and I remember when the Northeast Delhi pogrom was happening. like students from Delhi University and other universities. We like it was night. It was closing midnight, and we went to the CM's residence and we protested in front of there. And the only person from like faculty person was Professor Hani, and Professor Jenny was there, and Farzana also. And he was they were with us all through the night, and me and my other friend, his name is also Hani, we were there along with him. And when after some time the police started using the water cannon, and we all ran, we like Professor Hani, like Ginny ma'am, we all ran together, and we were like scattered around different places, and they actually helped students who were scattered get into get into their own hostels and get safely home. So I've been thinking of writing a letter to Professor Hani like all these years, but I couldn't do that. But I hope Jenny ma'am can convey all this to him. I ask you all to be like not be pessimistic, and look at one day he'll be free and he'll be with us, speaking in webinars, and that day will come. If you look around the world, everywhere this is happening, atrocities are happening and oppression is happening, but there is also resistance, and resistance is also winning in places. So and I request you all to be even if you can't do great things, speak against the state loudly or anything, at least be kind, Professor Hani was to other people, especially those who are from the marginalized communities, or those who do not have privilege, and that would actually help them a long way in their lives, and that would actually help the society in a whole as well. So that's all I would like to say. I have to say, and yeah, okay, thank you, bye.
Thank you, Asif, for such a speech full of hope, full of optimism. Really appreciate that. And here we went. I think we exceeded the kind of time frame we were planning. So now we need to end the session. And yeah, as Professor Sai Baba mentioned, now we are seeing more student movements across the globe, how people are like coming together to talk about the injustices, in the world, especially the genocide against Palestine. And the closer we look at the issue of Professor Hany Babu's arrest, the more we are aware of its complexity. It's not an isolated attack on one single person, one academic, not like one particular community, but it has such deeper and broader implications, in both national and international levels. And it also tells us how our struggles are connected. And to give one example, the settled colonial state of Israel that sells the Indian state Pegasus software, which is used for spying on its citizens, which includes like the Bhima Koregaon 16 and all the lawyers who were working with them, which is also is the same state that killed around like more than at least 40,000 Palestinians in Gaza in a brutal genocide campaign. BJP's vision of Hindu Rashtra take lessons and support from the ethno-religious state of Israel. So this means we need to join hands with the international community, with other organizations, other student solidarity networks, and collectively resist the kind of repressive, genocidal ideologies and regimes and states. And I think this should be our next step moving forward. We want Professor Babu to be released before his next birthday for sure. That's the goal with which we need to, move forward, and we need your help, all your help and support for that. If there is any way you would like to participate, I request you to reach out to us on our social media page. Please keep talking. Please keep making more noises. Please keep the conversation going in your own little spaces. And yeah, if there is any way you would like to get involved with this collective, please reach out. Sorry. Give me a second. There is okay. Professor Sachinarayanan would like to speak with us, so I'm giving him I'm handling the mic over to him.
I hope you can hear me. I was just for a brief while I had to get my daughter from a place, and when Jenny asked me whether I would like to join, that was exactly the time when I was out, and I had to come back in. And of course, now I am back, so I won't. I think there is a restriction about time, so I won't keep it long. It is just another voice, just like all the people who spoke today, and all the other people who have participated today in this program. So in solidarity with all of you, and we want Babu back. That is very clear. And like what is especially, like the situation before us is slightly more hopeful, technically speaking, because 2 days back we were in press club trying to make an intervention on behalf of the Kashmir lawyers who have been booked again, recently. And there, many of the advocates and lawyers, I don't know whether Nihal is still there, but many of the lawyers were saying once that Supreme Court judgment on Sisodia's bail is there, it should also help many other political prisoners and many other people who have been kept under trial with 50,000 long pages of charge sheet to come out. So that way, I think we should be hopeful. The most heartening thing for me, as a friend and as a colleague, I've traveled with Hany, Jenny, and Faizi, and we have had discussions. We have participated in programs together. But the most heartening thing for Jenny and Faizi and all of us today is the fact that his students are here as the prime organizers and movers of this kind of a meeting. So that tells us that the communication that we often try to have, whether it is any one of us in the official capacity as a teacher, that we try to have in our classrooms and beyond, that also meets some success. I'm not, on a backpatting kind of a mood, but this tells me, because I've met Asif or Ikra or Ibrahim, I think outside when this occasion came upon us, like after the raid on Hany's house, and whether it is Sai's case, we have all met in these kind of struggle sites or occasions. But the very fact that like there are people who can take lead and organize this kind of an occasion, that will add more fire to the kind of spirit that Hany and many of us would try to kindle in ourselves first and in people around us. We miss Hany for many things. Look at the Davinder Singh judgment from Supreme Court. We would be parsing legal documents, studying and trying to come up with programs that will take up the larger struggle. If Hany is there with us, we are all trying to do that. But of course, we know how Hany could galvanize people across streams and come together in pursuit of that kind of justice and all that. So with these words, I just want to salute each and every one of you. And Hany will get the message definitely about our hope and our expectations and our fight. He would be imagining all that, I guess. Whenever he talks to Jenny, Jenny has often told me that there are many things that they talk about, of course, but there are certain things about other people and other movements that he is keenly interested in. So that way, I think this program will also shore up his. We learned from him as a friend and colleague. I can say that we have always learned from him, but that process will continue, and this meeting will be a very small step towards providing Hany a certain kind of confirmation about the commitment that he wanted all of us to have. So that's it. Thank you for the time, and sorry, I think there was some breakup in communication. Otherwise, I would not have jumped in towards the end. I could have made it clear. But anyway, thank you, and salutes to each and everyone, especially the organizers. Thank you.
Thank you, Sachin, for this, for coming and and speaking, saying all these nice things. And yes, we need to conclude at this point. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you again, my friends and colleagues and Professor Babu's family for helping with organizing this event, and all the people who joined at this late hour, of course. And let's hope to welcome Professor Babu on a webinar like this super soon. Okay, that's good. Oh, okay. Professor Sabah Hussain would like to speak. Okay. And I'm really excited to see, as we, even after trying to conclude, there is more.
I'm sorry, I'm Sehba, and I'm very sorry to come in so late. I should have waved and said, let me say 2 words. May I?
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
I've been there from the beginning of the meeting, and it's wonderful. And the strange thing is, I've not known Hany Babu personally, but the person I know personally is Jenny Fezi. We have traveled to Taloja. We have gone for mulaqats. We've met in courts. The only thing I'm saying, everyone spoke wonderfully, and it gives you an idea of who Hany Babu is. What a wonderful scholar, teacher, husband, father. But somebody must speak also about how families' lives are completely disrupted. I mean, we come from Delhi to Bombay like how many times in the year? From jail to court. So I think it's very important to remember the struggle is at 3 levels: political, legal, personal. We talk about the first 2, but we rarely talk about the last one. That's all I wanted to say, and hats off to all the 16, one is gone, but all of these who have struggled, and all of us have, and you too. And thank you so much for letting me in. That's all I needed to say, because I'm part of a group which is called BK Family Members, and we share everything. Until I joined that, my battle was lonely. with all these people, I have learned to fight and we do it together. So please always remember how lives are disrupted and families are uprooted. I'm running between two places. So is Jenny and Faizi studying. Imagine the impact. All families. So my hats off to all of these people inside and outside who brought bail. That struggle is another one. And my hats off to families of the BK16 also. That's all I needed to say. Thank you for allowing me. Yeah.
Thank you, Salwa Sen, for this final remarks, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening, and looking forward to having more gatherings, more conversations. Let's conclude here. Thank you very much.